If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good, and today we have on the phone Eric Bjorling, the lifestyle marketing guy. What a great title. You know, Mike, we have all these great people with these cool titles.
Yeah.
And you and I are just like the co-host, of a radio show. Hey, Mike is a co-host and John's a co-host.
Right.
But we got the lifestyle marketing guy. Eric, welcome to Green is Good, and thank you for coming on to tell us all about Trek Bikes.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, listen, this is so wonderful, and bikes are so important to the whole sustainability movement and the green revolution. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit first about Trek Bikes and what your mission is and how you got started. Give us a little bit of teaser on that first.
Yeah, sure thing. You know, Trek's mission for years and years, to give you a little history, we've been making bikes in Waterloo, Wisconsin, this beautiful little country town. And since about 1976, we started in hand building frames in this little red barn.
So it's a little bit of a born in the USA deal here.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
We are full, and we still make bikes actually still in Waterloo. We've moved on beyond the barn. Our barn has gotten a lot bigger, but still here in Wisconsin making bikes. And for years and years and years, Trek was really all about making the world's greatest bikes. And now we've actually sort of moved beyond, taken it a step further. And right now, our mission is really to sort of change the world through bicycling. We've made a full commitment, top to bottom in our company, on really getting more people on bikes and really using the bike as a tool to improve the world around us.
Well, perfect. And so that's why you're on Green is Good today, because we want you to share with our listeners, how are you now going to go promote that second part of your mission? Obviously, in the last 30 years, your brand has done wonderfully making the best bike in the world. How are you going to go now help save the world? How are you going to be a simple solution to some of the most complex problems out there?
Sure thing. We really look at it as our company really has three opportunities, really. We go through product, process, and people. And when we do product, we started re-looking at our product a few years ago and saying, if we're going to make products that really make sense and can really make a difference, they really need to sort of fit people's lifestyle. So we adopted this whole lifestyle-based design theory around our pavement bikes. And it was really just all about finding out, really getting with the consumer and finding out what we can do through our design and our manufacturing to create a simple solution, create a solution for people's needs, allow them to carry more things by bike, allow them to take more trips by bike, and really just sort of move beyond, a competitive level of cycling. I think so many people look at cycling and they look at it as something that's unattainable or they just don't have the fitness level. And what we're really here to say is, that's really not what cycling is all about. Cycling is really about changing the world. And changing yourself.
Okay, so wait a second, changing the world. So you bring up a great, a global view with that. And before we get into some of the details, tell us a little bit about I was on your website last night. Great website, by the way. And for our listeners out there, trekbikes.com, TREK, bikes, BIKES.com. Great website, and my hat's off to you. But now explain to our listeners a little bit the comparison in terms of bicycles sell-through in the United States versus, let's just take two countries, Germany and the Netherlands, and what that means to us here in this country and what some of the ramifications can mean based on the sell-through of bikes in comparing these three countries.
Absolutely. We use those. You mentioned those other countries, Germany, the Netherlands, a lot of the interior European continent. We really hold those countries up as great examples of what the U.S. could be. The U.S. has sort of gone through a lot of different. Cycling has just kind of experienced trends in the U.S. like any other clothing trend.
Sure.
In the 90s, mountain biking was everything. Everybody was buying mountain bikes and talking about mountain bikes. The late 90s, early 2000s, Lance comes on the scene. Everyone's buying and talking about road bikes and how great road cycling is. And now we've really moved on to, what's the next big thing in cycling? And the next big thing in cycling is really just utilitarian cycling, using that bike as a tool. The Europeans have been doing it for years. They design their their cities around the bicycle, and they design their movement around the bicycle.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Germany, which has 125-year cycling history, and Netherlands, which I know is your European headquarters. So bikes per 1,000 United States, approximately per 1,000, 385 in U.S., right?
Yep.
Germany, 588. Netherlands, Mike, you got to hear this one, Mike. 1,000 bikes per 1,000 people in the Netherlands.
That's a 1-to-1.
That's 1-to-1, baby.
Absolutely. And, it's so amazing. If you ever have the opportunity to go there and you actually watch somebody in the Netherlands, actually watch a Dutch person use their bike, it's incredible. I mean, you got women in, high heels, skirts, totally couture, outfits, riding their bike.
Who wouldn't watch?
And it's not a big deal to them. They're not doing anything different. They're just doing it.
Hey, and then percent of urban travel, accounting for it, when you start looking at the same three countries, United States, 1% of our urban travel is done by cycling. Germany, 12%. Netherlands, 28%. And then I love the last statistic about what percentage of the population is obese. United States, 30.6%. Germany, 12.9%. And Netherlands, 10%. So, talk about a global view and a simple solution to complex issues and problems.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it's sitting in most people's garage already.
Amen. So tell us a little bit. So what are you doing as Trek Bicycle now? How are you now bringing this wave from what's already part of the DNA of the Netherlands and of Germany and trying to make it part of our DNA for the betterment of on many levels in the United States?
Sure thing. Well, one of the great things about those countries is they provide great places for you to ride. They are great places for you to ride.
Good point.
They've got the infrastructure, they've got the parking, they've got their cities are just designed around the bicycle, and that's really one big thing we're doing as a corporation, really at the corporate executive level, is we're really partnering with a lot of organizations that are dedicated to creating that in the U.S. It's things like bicycle-friendly communities that legislate for more bicycle infrastructure and lobbies for more infrastructure and more spending on bicycles in our transportation bills. It's Safe Routes to School. Safe Routes to School is a great program that really looks – one of the biggest reasons that people sort of abandon the bicycle is because they hit 16 and, the car is everything to them. And there's a ton of places that don't even allow the kids to ride their bikes to school anymore.
Right.
And the more that we've taken bicycles out of the hands of children, the greater the obesity rate has gotten among children.
Sure.
And so really, it's really partnering with those people that are already in place and doing the work and making sure that they have the resources that we can offer as a corporation to continue that work and to make big impact.
Right.
Well, one of the things that we're finding, too, here in Fresno now, Eric, I am just one of those people. I'm considerably older than 16, have been for a couple of decades.
Sure.
But I still have as much fun riding my bike today as I did when I was a kid. It's, I know that there is a certain high-end car that is called the luxury and the ultimate freedom machine. But to me, my first freedom machine was my bicycle, and I still get that same feeling when I'm riding. And a very cool thing that's happening here in the Central Valley, a lot of cities here in Fresno and around the valley are putting in more and more bicycle lanes, and motorists are actually starting to pay attention now and realize, oh, no, that's not an early place to make a right-hand turn. That is a bike lane. You're seeing more people take advantage of that.
Great point.
Absolutely. It's really sort of, we're going to have to form a partnership, really. It's going to have to be a two-way street. Totally forgive that pun, but
right.
with motorists and with cyclists, and it's happening. There is kind of a reawakening of the importance of the bicycle, and I think at the bottom line is that a bicycle is just way more fun to ride than driving your car.
Yeah, that's a great point. So how do you then get you are the lifestyle marketing guy. So when you look at the United States and how obese we've gotten and the problems that we're facing and the need to move around still, of course, how do you get us from 385 sell-through on 1,000 up to that 1,000 level? Or what's the bridge? Help us walk our listeners through the bridge and inspire them to become part now of the solution.
Sure thing. It's funny because you can look at the U.S. and you can look at it through a tilted lens and say, oh my gosh, how just bad things have gotten.
Right.
We really look at the U.S. through a lens of, oh my God, what an unbelievable opportunity to change our fellow countrymen for the better. And cycling is, like you said it before, it's a simple solution, and it's already sitting in so many people's garages. The first thing I think that we're working on this as hard as we can right now, is really give people a sense of safety. So many people look at cycling as just, that's dangerous. There's not any bike lanes in my city. You can do something about that. The first thing to do is really just, pay attention to where spending on transportation is going on in your city and in your communities, and lobby and ask for bicycle lanes. So many bicycle projects sort of get swept under the rug because no one asks for them.
Good point.
And we have gotten a ton of response just by asking, just by standing up and saying, hey, remember bicycles, remember bicycles, remember bicycles. And, it's through our partnership with several different lobby, and legislative programs. But it's really just kind of getting out there and doing it. And, the bicycle has just held so much for the U.S., and it's such a great opportunity.
So let's talk a little bit about the actual bikes themselves, and we're going to come back to some solutions. So tell us a little bit about I saw your Ecodesign online last night. Talk about that and the Dream Bikes program. I want our listeners to understand all the great things you're doing with your Ecodesign and your Dream Bikes program.
Sure thing. Our Ecodesign program is something that you want to talk about a total labor of love for just a huge group of people in the building. We started a couple of years ago making bikes that made more sense to people and could help them live their lives on two wheels. Then what was the next step of that? We kind of looked in the mirror and said, you know what, we can do a lot better, not just by the product design, but by the product's actual birth and manufacturing. So Ecodesign is actually a totally different way for us. We spent over a year in development, and half that year was really just spent learning. And so we had to kind of change the way we looked at our product and say, you know what, our products are just like living organisms. They have birth, they have life, and there's an afterlife to those.
Great point.
So, what can we do at each one of those stages to drive more eco-friendly features into that? So it's understanding that where these materials are coming from and how many steps it takes to extract the material that it's made of from the earth. We found that steel is like just an unbelievably more eco-consciously, manufactured product than an aluminum. So we were like, okay, great. Let's change all these bikes over to steel and, automatically, remove all these steps from manufacturing. Life is all about, the fastest way that you can keep something out of a landfill is just make sure people can keep using it. So many things are sort of designed with a disposable lifespan and say,
That's
at the end of it, it's just going to end up in the garbage and so be it. It's all about selling more units.
Is the steel that you're sourcing from recycled steel?
Yes, and a lot of parts of it are made from recycled parts.
So wonderful.
And then, steel is actually one of those materials, and then that's when you get to the afterlife. Steel is one of those materials that you can actually, it's just so much easier to recycle. And steel frame is typically going to last a little bit longer than some other frames just because it's so, just strong. It's an amazing material. It's one of the first materials bikes were ever made out of.
Right.
Still 100-some years later, we're still using steel.
So that's the Ecodesign program.
Ecodesign, yep.
And then talk about a little about, I love this name, Dream Bikes. What's the Dream Bikes?
Yeah. Dream Bikes is unbelievable. It's a retail location. We actually opened our first retail location last year. 2 years ago.
Okay.
And what Dream Bikes is a partnership with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And what we do is we open up a retail location in a troubled neighborhood. We looked at our backyard first and said, okay, you know what, Madison, Wisconsin is sort of where we all live and ride our bikes. And we're like, you know what, this is a great opportunity. We open a retail location that takes donated bikes. Again, talking about that afterlife. So bikes don't have to wind up in a landfill. There always is sort of a reusable and a recycled way to do things. So Dream Bikes takes donated bicycles from the community. We staff the entire location with members of the Boys and Girls Clubs, and those kids learn job skills. They learn about how to, work registers, work in retail, fix bikes. And so what they'll do is the kids will fix all the bikes for resale, and then we'll sell them at an affordable price to that community.
Wow.
So it's really a full-on recycled bike recycle program. Wow. We're actually opening our second location this summer in Milwaukee. We're very happy, and it's got tons of opportunity.
So where was the first one?
First one was in Madison.
Okay.
Now, Eric, when you resell these bikes, I'm assuming that, obviously they're safe. You've had the kids working on them, but they look like new bikes, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. What the big idea is on that is give people access to quality bicycles. I think a lot of people see the bicycle, especially kids' bikes, as toys. To us, bikes aren't toys; they're tools. And, that's really what it's all about. Make sure, a lot of the time the people don't have access is because they're at an unattainable price point. This is a way that we can get safe, reliable, quality bicycles in the hands of people at affordable prices.
And you know what I think is really cool about that, too? Just you say you put the Dream Bikes program in troubled areas, and so you're thinking economically depressed areas, and people struggling to make the day by day. A lot of people getting by on hand-me-down clothes. How nice it is to get something that looks new and shiny, so that when the kids get the bikes, it's not just, well, here's somebody else's discard, and you're not quite good enough to get a new bike.
Right, exactly. People are going to use that product, especially too if it's something. If it works like new and it feels like new and it looks like new, they're going to use it. And that's what we really want people using.
That is so great. So how many of these Dream Bikes are you going to build?
Yeah, well, we have one right now that's operational.
Right.
Number 2 is going into Milwaukee this summer.
Right.
And then plans for expansion. We're looking at several of different retail locations, and hopefully we'll have. There is a 5-year plan to have at least a few more in the next few years.
Okay, great. So now let's go back to what you said, though. So you said a lot of people have the solution waiting for them in their garage, but how about our listeners that are listening to you today, Eric, and say, I want one of those. So how do they access one of your great Trek bikes?
Sure thing. We actually sell our bikes through an independent dealer network. All of our bikes are sold through independently owned shops throughout the world.
Great.
We've got about 2,500 retail locations nationwide that carry our bikes, and you can find all those on trekbikes.com. But
perfect.
Almost guaranteed, we've got a Trek bike in your area.
That's so great. So now let's talk about DNA. Not only do you, Eric, talk a great talk, but I believe after studying about your company and why Mike and I invited you on the show today is your company's DNA really walks a great walk. Take us through a little bit about some of the inspirational and revolutionary concepts that your company's letting your employees avail themselves of, such as bike commuting. Talk about some of the programs that you have inside your company that show your green DNA.
Oh, sure thing. A couple years ago, we actually kicked all non-carpoolers out of the lower parking lot. We've got 2 lower parking lots, and we are a little bit in the countryside, so there is a little bit of an opportunity to drive. We do have great roads to cycle, but we kicked everybody that wasn't a carpooler just straight up out of the lower lot. So now and I tell you what, we're still in Wisconsin, and it's still January, and it can be 20 degrees below zero, and if you didn't carpool that day, you got a long walk.
Wow.
So, it's one of those things, and it's so funny because you'll sit there and you'll carpool, or you'll carpool as much as you can, and then a day will happen where it just doesn't work out, and then you're sitting there and you realize exactly how important it is. I mean, just because it's just a short trip into the office.
Right.
We actually, we reward people for carpooling through product discounts, and we have a great cafeteria here, so you can actually get breakfast if you ride your bike on into the office. You're definitely encouraged to ride your bike as much as possible.
But
we
can
have
you
all
clean
the
up?
Infrastructure.
Can you clean up?
Oh yeah, we have all the infrastructure. We've got unbelievable facilities as far as we've got showers, lockers, indoor bike parking. In our HR department, I have to give them all the credit in the world. It's really their efforts in committing to healthy employees. We know healthy employees drive healthy.
So bike commuting is just on those 2 elements, you're encouraging bike commuting and carpooling at the same time.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then also I was blown away with your application of renewable electric power. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, last year we actually became the first Wisconsin manufacturer to change completely to renewable energy. Completely, and that's all 3 of our Wisconsin facilities are on all renewable energy, and we now get our power from some wind turbines that are actually right outside of La Crosse, Wisconsin.
So but talk about what so the listeners hear the wow numbers. What's the net savings by doing that?
Oh my God!
Of coal,
I think it's
around 10.5 million pounds of coal.
10.5 million pounds of coal. It's something like 51. We found out that we could take 51 freight train cars of coal just right off the map.
Good gosh!
Just making this one. Basically, just what you can do is call your power company and just say, I want to be on renewable energy.
Hey, Eric, so that's just amazing. The green DNA at your company is amazing. So we're down to the last couple of minutes here. Can you just give a little glimpse and visibility to our listeners of the future of Trek Bikes and the future of bicycling here in America? Where is it going, and what is it going to be?
Sure thing. Bicycles we are at the tipping point of cycling in America, and really the impact that it's going to create. Trek is dedicated really to creating safe places for all people to ride, and then creating real solutions. One thing that we introduced this year was electric bikes. Electric bikes worldwide are a complete revolution. They're huge in Europe, they're huge in Asia, and they're going to be huge in the U.S.
Wow.
What these bikes represent is a total breakdown of any barrier anybody can have to cycling. I'm not fit enough, or it's too far, or I've got too much to carry. All you have to do, electric assist, it's just the answer. You flip on a switch, and all of a sudden your power output is multiplied.
That's great.
It's an amazing product that's going to change the world, and it's going to change how people move.
Unbelievable. Eric, I just want to tell you, Mike and I are sitting here, and we're just so impressed of the green DNA and all of the vision and all of the inspirational things that Trek Bikes is doing to make our world a better place. I hope our listeners were similarly inspired, and I hope all of our listeners who want to get themselves onto a Trek Bike, go to your great website, trekbikes.com. And Eric, I just want you to know that you are living proof that green is good.
Thanks a lot, guys.